Welcome to FI Spotlight. I'm your host, Susan Choi. Each week, we feature a special guest to provide insights on a relevant topic in the food and beverage industry. This week, we are talking about AI technology in the workplace. What are the real benefits? What are the misconceptions? And what's the best way to utilize AI-based tools to get maximum results? To get to the bottom of all this, I'd like to welcome Rory Flynn, founder of Systematiq AI. Rory, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Amazing. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks again for joining us today. So Rory, let's get into it. Tell us, what is Systematiq AI and how do you help your clients?
Totally. So Systematiq AI is technically call it an operational AI firm, meaning we go into people's businesses, we look at their problems, and we see if we can solve them with AI. So, a lot of it is there's a number of different things that we do. We focus on, either training or implementing systems, but really it's just how do we make businesses more productive, more efficient, and essentially, cut some costs along the way. So it's, we're looking at different solutions with every situation, but really it's just how can we plug common AI tools into the workplace today and make them function for an entire team.
Right. You mentioned common AI tools. One thing that immediately pops into my mind is ChatGPT. Everyone seems to know about it. They use it. But Rory, what are some common misconceptions about AI-based platforms like ChatGPT that need to be corrected in order for those of us in the office to effectively use this kind of technology?
Number one is I think first and foremost, I think a lot of prompting is very shallow. And what I mean by that is, there's a lot of information online about here's, 70 prompts to do your marketing. But really, with a very shallow prompt, you're going to get a very shallow answer. So if people are getting really generic outputs from the machine, really it comes down to their inputs. Because I think about it in a sense of like you're talking to a junior employee, right? Almost like if that's the best way to put it. So if you tell your junior employee you want to go do a 30-day social media content calendar, right? And if you just give them that direction and that's it, most likely what are you expecting to come back? Something that's going to probably need a lot of work and it's not going to be polished. It's going to be super generic. But if you tell a junior employee you need a 30-day content calendar, we're going to focus on Instagram, we want to focus on this audience, we want to push these specific points, we want to have this type of tone, there's probably going to be a much better first go at it, right? So I think that's number one. Basically just being more specific and more direct, like you're leading another human being and trying to get the best and most efficient information out of them. And then number two is that it's just for finished product and just for writing. Essentially, I think a lot of people just see it as a fix-all for emails or basically, social media posts or things like that, which, yeah, it's great. It can do that. But when I ask myself, can ChatGPT beat the best copywriter or the best, author on earth? I'm probably going to say no. Can it beat the best human? Probably not. But on the other end of it, can it beat the best data analyst? 100%. Like I think it's faster, it's quicker. So I look at things more so on the side of how can we use this from an analytics standpoint? How can we use this from a strategic standpoint to feed it data and get responses and basically supplement our internal strategy or our internal data analytics? Because from there, you can build off that with your own human talent and your own human capabilities. So the long answer, but again, I could probably go on about that for 6 hours if you let me.
And I wish we did have 6 hours. What you have to say is really interesting. But taking a step back into sort of a bigger picture here, I'm sure you'd agree with me, Rory, when I say there's been a whirlwind of coverage regarding AI technology in general, a lot of media coverage about, the implications for the future, what it means. We're seeing a lot of news about deep fakes, things like that, but more, realistically speaking, and especially, again, in terms of the workplace, in that professional context, what are some legitimate concerns that people should be aware of when utilizing AI-based platforms, in their work?
100%. I think it's a big one, whether that's on the written side or that's on the image creation side, because it's very plausible. Because number one, we do not know what these platforms, how they were trained, right? So if you think of something like ChatGPT as a brain, right? Like it has to intake a number, like a trillion data points to actually like understand things. So just like you would go about learning right over the course of your years of being on this earth, every stimulus, every input gets, functioned into your brain. It gets jumbled around in there, and then that eventually comes out in some way, shape, or form. So same idea. with these larger language models or something like an image creator, right? Like it has to be fed a ton of information so that it then can create. So we don't know what that information was. So regardless, things like ChatGPT, if you just go and say, write me an article on XYZ, you don't know if it's plagiarizing, right? Because it doesn't have any plagiarism controls in there. So you have to be cognizant of that. And then on the image generation side, again, we don't know where these images were pulled from, that it was trained on, that we like educated the actual AI brain. So again, you have to be very cognizant that it's possible, right? And then again, something like an image generator, I always do utilize things like reverse image search, because again, if it spits something out that is very close to an image that has already been produced, that's grounds for copyright or an investigation, right? So just being cognizant of the fact that that can happen, number one, and then having systems in place to double check yourself. So again, if you're trying to reproduce this stuff for finished product, always be cognizant of that. But again, if you're utilizing it internally to move things from layer to layer or from team to team, I think it's a little bit less of a risk than something that's going out commercially. So there's going to be a lot. I think people have to just be, again, cognizant of the pitfalls of it, so you can put a plan in place and just be aware of it, so that when you're going to actually utilize this stuff and maximize its potential, you're not stealing, essentially. So that's basically my thoughts on it, because I think it's going to be a really rough, I think, couple years with us trying to figure out how to keep up with the pace of it and how we can legislate around it. Because at this point, I don't think legislation can keep up with the pace of development, because there's something new every 2 weeks. So it's something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. I love that point that you're making. Always being aware that these kinds of platforms like ChatGPT, they're not just creating things out of nothing. They're pulling from what's already been created in the internet, from all of that data that it is able to cull and create iterations of. Rory, what should be the bottom line thing that, most important thing about this type of technology in the workplace that people should know about? Totally, people that are totally new to this, they want to get into it, they have no idea where to start. Rory, what would you say is the most important thing for them to know when approaching this kind of technology?
I think you just got to start with one tool. And this is my own personal opinion. I think if you start with one tool and really learn it, you'll be able to understand how a lot of the tools work. To me, at this point, I really have a hard time seeing a future where this isn't part of every single business in some way, shape, or form. So how can we learn these tools as they're developing? Because the analogy I use all the time is, if I gave my 95-year-old grandparents an iPhone right now and they've never used one before and said, go use it, they'd be like, it'd look like hieroglyphics to them, because they haven't developed the technology. Now, if I gave anyone of, someone in my generation an iPhone, they could pick it up and utilize it right away, because they've been there for every step of the iteration. So I think right now we're at that infancy stage of the AI technology, and the better it gets, if you're learning along the way with it, it's when it's insanely powerful and insanely impactful. That's when you're already going to be great, because you've dealt with all the crap all the way up until the time of now. So I think it's a really good place to just get your feet wet, start testing some tools. They don't have to be for, it doesn't have to be for everything. I look at, little tools like fireflies.ai. It's a call recorder. I mean, it records your calls, organizes your notes, it can shoot them to your CRM, all without you having to do anything. So it's even understanding like small capabilities there of what that could mean for time management in your business, right? If it takes you 20 minutes to take notes and then put them in a CRM, and you're on 10 calls a week, right? That's 200 minutes a week that you're that you're basically spending going from taking your written notes and then putting them somewhere else. When you realize how that compounds over the course of a year, and it's like, okay, 200 minutes per week, it's 800 minutes per month, that's 9,600 minutes per per year. That's what you're doing, moving something from a pad to like a CRM or a computer. It's like, there's so much fragmented time spent doing, I don't want to say pointless things, but again, time that could be better spent for you and maybe on things that you would rather be doing, like developing strategy, talking to clients, working on different initiatives, things like that. So there's probably have a very long, hard opinion about this one, but yeah, I think it's really just starting small and getting your toes wet and realizing how everything's starting to look and work.
I agree with that perspective. Starting from the beginning, taking it step by step, keeping up with newer iterations. Rory Flynn, thank you so much for your insights. You can watch more of his insights and even step-by-step tutorials of all of the things that he's talking about. We recently did a great webinar about how to utilize this kind of AI technology in your own workplaces, in your own workflows. For more information, please check out foodinstitute.com. All right, Rory Flynn, founder of Systematiq AI. Rory, thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you.
And as always, you can check out all the great content that we've done by clicking on this playlist. Till next time, I'm Susan Choi. Take care and have a great weekend.